Okay, this is the Vermont Castings Intrepid 2, and I'm going to show how to light it so that you don't have any problems running it. Because if it's lit correctly and it's operating correctly, you'll have a good fire and it'll last a long time and it'll be real easy and your glass will stay clean. So I've burnt probably 10 fires and some of them are all-nighters, and this glass is still pretty darn clean. A little bit of soot down here, a little ash on there that'll just wipe off with your hand, but I mean that's pretty clean for lots of fires. So after you get all the ash out, which I'm not going to bore you with, sometimes you're left with some coals, charcoals. Those are your best friend. Leave them in there. Clean out your ash drawer. It doesn't have to be spick and span. I got ash in there. It doesn't matter. Close that. Get rid of your andirons. Just put them to the side for a second. Not really going to need them. So in my area where I live, Rutland makes these. They're for grills or whatever. They're like squares. You know, you bust off a square. You can see those little squares. And you bust off a square. You can use a whole square. I use a little shred. I mean, that's tiny. You could use fat wood too. A lot of people have trouble with fat wood and they get frustrated with it. If you're going to use fat wood, the best way to do it is take it and take an axe or a knife, if you have a beater knife, and get on it like this and maybe hit it. This is a really good knife, so I'm not going to do it. Whack it and get real small splinters. Put some of those small splinters in first before you try burning something this big, or you're going to be frustrated and you're going to hate this stuff. But it's really good to use. By small splinters, I mean something like this. You know, get these little guys in there, real thin. You know, a few of these of fat wood, then you can put the bigger pieces on. So, here we go. We'll light this guy off first. This is that wax. It's like a wax fire starter. It's big sawdust and wax. Drop that in there. Let it just sit there and burn for a second. And you want to take your handle and make sure that your flue is all the way open. So mine is. It's in the down position up here. Up or down. You want it down. And that makes this flue in here open. Goes right to your chimney. And so just like with the fat wood, you want to start with the smallest possible pieces of wood you can. Get them going. And I split this stuff out of the logs, big logs that I season, you know, outside for years. And I keep it dry. And when I bring it in, you know, even like an 18-inch log is too big for this stove. So here I brought in some stuff that I cut to show you. This will fit in this stove. But a nice byproduct of cutting them to make them fit in the stove are these little chunks that also fit in the stove. And I take these with my hatchet and I break them up into big pieces like this and little pieces like this out of these, you see. And that is great kindling. And I just fill a bucket with it. When I'm bored, I fill the bucket. You know, I'm kind of running out now. But the key to getting this stove to run right is to start very small. It should take you about an hour to really get this thing running to where you can walk away and it is running. So there's a couple things you're doing, and I know this is boring watching somebody make a little stick fire, and it doesn't have to be perfect, so if they fall, who cares? Just they'll catch on fire eventually. You don't want to choke it out. You don't want to get it to where you have to constantly blow on it or whatever. One of the things that helps is you open the air all the way up here. Your primary air intake, open it all the way. That's your gas pedal. That in the closed position, you're not going to burn anything. When you get that up to about medium here in my house, it works the best. But for lighting purposes, keep it all the way open like that. Now you're getting the maximum amount of air from underneath these coals, as well as all this air from out here in the doors. And as that thing gets going, you're just going to keep adding more and more of this stuff. But you don't want to choke it out. You got to let it breathe and get going on its own. If you feel like sticking your face in there and blowing on it, go right ahead. Guys with beards don't really stick their face that close to a fire because when it pops, you lose your beard. And so we'll shoot again when I'm ready to add, when I've got a bunch of this stuff in there and it's burning, and we're going to add something bigger, say even bigger than these chunks when we start moving to stuff like this. So I'm going to take these couple of things right here. I'm going to take them into the garage. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to bust them into big pieces, bigger than these, so that I can get this really going. So I'm going to add a few more of these here. And you, of course, you never want to walk away from a fire that's going. You burn your house down. So for the moment that I'm going to go outside, and it's only going to take me about 2 minutes, I'm going to bust these up. I am going to close these, but the process is you want, with these doors open the entire time, you're trying to build up a nice deep coal base inside. So you want not burning wood like this, but nice red coals, just coals. And on top of that, you'll have logs, either this big or that big, but you're gonna have logs in there. Once those logs are burning, as if, say you were to pull it out, it would burn on its own till it burnt all the way down to nothing. When that log is at that stage where it'll burn on its own, that's when you can close the flue and have you go into catalytic burn. If you're not willing to take the time to do that, you're probably not going to be too successful. What you want to do too is get yourself a thermometer for your exhaust, for your chimney, and one for your griddle. It's just a teapot for keeping humidity in the air. When you get your griddle up in the 500 area and your doors are open, that's getting to 500 degrees with the doors open. This getting up to about 500 degrees. That's when you could think about closing it completely and burning. A lot of times with the doors open, it'll be very hard to get to 500, but your chimney shouldn't go over 500 no matter how crazy the fire in here gets when you have your doors open, because the room air is going in, and actually, even though you think it's really, really going to be hot in here, it's the room air is cooling it, so it's keeping it from overfiring the chimney. But really what you're doing when you're making this coal base is a few things. You're warming up your flue. You want that all the way up to be warm, really, really warm. That helps pull air from the stove, outside air, into the stove and go up, and it reduces any chances of getting nasty creosote. So you want a hot chimney all the time. And then there's another thing. So once we get this done and it's running and it's just running on its own, everything's great, and it's time to add more fuel, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to open it. You don't have to open these doors for that, because you can open this, as you know, and I'll show you that. You put your next log in and you wait until that log is burning on its own, completely on its own, whereas if you were to pull it out, it would stay on fire. Then you shut back into catalytic burn again. That gives the coals down there, anything that's hiding in the ash that kind of extinguished itself, a chance to reburn, making it more efficient. You're burning everything 100%. It rewarms up your chimney all the way up, which pulls air in. So when you shut it, it's sucking air in and it's helping itself. We have a good natural draft right here in my house, so I don't really have to worry about like a draft or anything. But when we're running the clothes dryer or the hood exhaust on our stove, which we have a really big hood exhaust, you do have to open a window to let makeup air in, because otherwise you get negative pressure, So I open the window right here. Cold air is coming in, big deal. This thing gets so hot that in a couple hours you're gonna want the window open. Thing's gonna be running perfect. I don't care how cold it is outside, you're gonna want that window open sometimes. So you could see the window already is helping this thing really crank up by evening out the pressure and giving makeup air to the stove. So we'll shut it off for now. I'll get this thing loaded up with some kindling instead of talking, and then I'll go cut some bigger hunks and I'll show you that stage as well.